Hello, this is Mark here at Gary's Guitars in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and I'm here to talk about the Fender Standard Series, where it fits into the Fender universe, and is it a good idea, bad idea, is it a good guitar, a bad guitar? Let's talk about it. This is a talk. I'm not going to play the guitar for you right now, only because there's just a lot of people playing these guitars on YouTube and wherever else because they just came out, and I think the jury is in. They're fine. They kind of fit right where they are in the price range. They're better than a Classic 5, not quite a Player 2 series with their overall presentation, but they kind of landed that okay. $599 is a price point. When the Classic 5, when the Player series first came out, $599 was the price point, and it's a great price point. So, good on them for that. However, let's do a little bit of history, of course, for those who don't know. The American Standard was this kind of thing where, the word standard can mean two different things. It can mean high standards or low standards. Just standard, when you say, oh, it's standard, it's okay. But when we talk about the American Standard Fender, it seemed to be something like, this is the American Standard. This is like, that was a good naming idea, because it just sounded like you were getting your money's worth. But they moved production to the Mexican factory because they just moved more production to the Mexican factory. It's a bigger factory. They're trying to make more guitars. And they called it the Mexican Standard, and then they went and called it the just Standard, which is the most boring of all the naming of the standard things, just Standard. But here we are. It's a Fender name. Fender loves reusing their brand names all the way through the line throughout history, especially Deluxe and Standard, and so let's give it to them. They own the name Standard. American Standard was also the name of a toilet. So, but I digress. So now they're making them in Asia. They're making them in the same factory that makes the Squier Classic 5s and some of the nicer Squier guitars. It's the Court factory. It's no secret, I don't think. Court as a Korean manufacturer of guitars. They do a lot of OEM manufacturing for other companies, and they've been working with Fender for a long time. If you have a set neck Fender guitar, it probably was made at the Court factory. They made those Squiers that said Squier by Fender, and then Squier in little letters, and then they had Squier in big letters, and so they have those are all Korean-made guitars. And the important thing is Fender was trying to differentiate. So they said, okay, the Fender brand name is for North American-made guitars and Japanese-made guitars, and everything else is a Squier. That's what they've been trying to do for the last 5 or 6 years. Trying to clear that up in the branding with country manufacturer. However, they've played with that over the years. There were Korean-made Fenders briefly. There was Fender by Squier, Fender and Squier in little letters, Squier in big letters, and Fender in small letters. So Fender written on the back of the headstock. There were some Chinese-made Fender guitars, so they were branded Fender. And they were great. They came in here used, and I asked our sales guy, I'm like, what's up with these Chinese-made Fenders? These things are kind of cool. He's like, we don't talk about that. He's like, that we just experimented. It's something we experimented with. We're not doing that. This is what we're doing. Buy a lot of Player series, please. And then we did. But something that they were kind of like, they flirted with in the past. And now, this is going to be a Fender-branded guitar made in Indonesia. So for a lot of people, heads will explode because they think it cheapens the brand to manufacture them in Southeast Asia. I don't think so. I just think it's everything costs more now. If you need to have a low-cost guitar, you're going to have to make it for an amount of money that is going to be profitable. And working with these third-party manufacturers is something that, well, we know Fender and Gibson do it A lot of guitar manufacturers are doing it. And the Cort guitars are alright. They made, under their own name, they made good guitars throughout the 80s and such. They had a great reputation, and then they, now they're still making Cort guitars, selling, still doing pretty cool stuff. So the Fenders made by Cort are fine. And that's kind of like I was saying, that's kind of the consensus. These guitars are all right, but the idea is it worth the extra $180 to have the Fender logo on your guitar? And that's the kind of back and forth of that. Are they just giving us a Squier that says Fender on it? I would say no, just barely. So there are some attributes that are different. The real thing they did that was different is this: they're using the hardware that they would use in the Made in Mexico guitars, the Player 2. That's important because the Squier hardware is a little little loosey-goosey sometimes. The hardware on these standard guitars is better than a Squier. So you're getting better hardware, some manufacturing attributes that are better. They didn't. The Squier guitars, as everyone knows, are perfectly fine. So they didn't really have to create like a quality difference between those classic Vibe guitars and the Fender branded ones. And doing the few little changes and the better hardware, does kind of make it worth more. And Fender's a brand. Fender's one of those, it's like Apple or just Nike or whatever. It's a brand that really has earned its nameplate. It speaks to generations of guitar players. And so being able to have a beginner go out and buy a guitar that says Fender on it, it's kind of worth it too. And that's what the $399 Fender standard, Made in Mexico standards used to do for Fender. It made them accessible, the Fender brand accessible to all ages. So I appreciate that they're would I like them to be $100 less? Yes. Would I like them to give me more margin on them? Yes. But we are where we are. So let's do some conclusions here. The guitars are fine. They're priced okay. We would all like them to cost less money. If we don't like the idea of Fender guitars being made in non-Fender factories, then sorry. This is the way of the future with everything. It might be lucky for Fender if these, at the time of making this video, there's a lot of talk about making trade sanctions against Mexican-made stuff, which would be hilarious because all these years Fender just has this factory kind of right over the border, and it'd be amazing if Fender just accidentally got themselves out of a bind by manufacturing Fender guitars in Southeast Asia, which there's no plan to make a sanction against. So that might be a little knock-on effect. But globally, how is this going to affect the Fender brand? It's going to affect the Fender brand the same way that the Player Series did. It's kind of a resounding sigh. It's like, this is all right. It's not blowing doors off. Actually, the Classic Vibe series kind of blew some doors off when it came out. They're like, oh my God, you can get a reissue? And it just says Squier on it, but you can get a reissue for $3.99 at the time. These guitars are good. Like I said, they are probably worth that little bit more money in value. Heads will explode about, being manufactured by a third party in a Southeast Asian country, but that's not my take on it. That's kind of common these days. It won't adversely affect the rest of the Fender line. So that's where I stand on the standard. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to check out all the other videos here on YouTube and find us on other social media. And thanks for watching.